Hello, my name is Matthew Jackson. Welcome to another edition of my teaching videos. Today I want to talk to you about the aftermath of June 17th in Charleston, South Carolina, where 9 members of a black church were gunned down in cold blood by a crazy person. And I think any decent human being, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, whether you're black, white, or whatever your race is, certainly would be saddened by that event. And but having said that, the aftermath that followed that event, a lot of the rhetoric had simmered up, and now you have some people blaming this shooting on a flag. And I think that's very ridiculous. But what I wanted to do in this video is I wanted to take time to give my viewing audience a bit of a history lesson here, because you hear a lot of the flag in question that they're blaming this shooting on is they're calling it the Confederate flag. Well, the flag that they're talking about really isn't the Confederate flag, but let me get to that in a minute. Let me just give you a quick history of the flags of the Confederacy, so at least some of the major flags. In March of 1861, the Flags and Seals Committee designed this flag for the Confederacy. The flag never was officially passed by the Confederate Congress, but it was used, and it was used from March of 1861 to May of 1863. Now, and the reason they put this flag on the fast track, obviously war had broken out. The North was encroaching in Confederate territory. Confederate militia were defending their homeland, and obviously when you have a battle and you have wars, you got to fight under a flag. So that's how this flag got its quick thrust into the action. There was a battle at Manassas, Virginia, most commonly called the Battle of Bull Run. This took place on July 16th, 1861. In that battle, it was a non-windy day. There was no wind that day, so the colors on both the Union lines and the Confederate lines were limp. And the Confederates were using this flag as their colors, as their standard. Now, for those of you that don't understand Napoleonic warfare, basically the way that it works is you have your two armies fire volleys of shots at each other, then after they fired a few shots or so, they charge each other, hand-to-hand combat. Then after a while, the lines will sound retreat, and then the armies will retreat back to the lines, regroup, and then go for another series. Okay. The problem we had at the Battle of Manassas, or most commonly called the Battle of Bull Run, is when this flag is limp and there's no wind, it looks very similar to the Union flag, to the American flag. And so what you had happen is after the first wave of battles, you know, because when you're involved in this kind of warfare with gunfire, with hand-to-hand combat, you know, you're a little groggy, you're a little disoriented. And so what happened is you had Confederate soldiers, when they heard the retreat sound, they retreated to Union lines by mistake. And then, and also conversely, you had Union soldiers retreating to Confederate lines. Okay, and then when they retreated to the opposite lines, those soldiers got shot, because again, even though there's a big distinction between this flag and the Union flag. When it's limp and you're all groggy, it's hard to make those distinctions, and so there were mistakes made. So the Confederates decided to come up with another flag that would be used exclusively for battle purposes. Okay, so this flag here just wasn't a good battle flag. By the way, this flag is called the Stars and Bars flag. Okay? So they came up with a design that when the flag is limp, it would look distinctly different than the Union flag, and they came up with this design. This is the flag most people mistakenly refer to as the Confederate flag. Well, this is not the Confederate flag. It's the Confederate battle flag. And also people mistakenly call this flag the Stars and Bars. It is not the Stars and Bars. It's the Confederate battle flag, and this is the Stars and Bars. Okay? So when the battle flag was created, it wasn't created with the intent of, okay, let's see how many black people we can piss off today by flying this thing. They weren't thinking about suppressing black people and being racist. They were thinking about what kind of flag can we fly to defend ourselves against foreign invaders. That was the intent at the time. Now later on, after the Civil War, yes, the Ku Klux Klan and racist groups did hijack this flag and use that for racist purposes, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, there's a distinction between the Stars and the Bars, the Confederate battle flag. Now, in May of 1863, the Confederate Congress passed an official Confederate flag that you could actually call the Confederate flag, and it looked like this. Basically, it's the battle flag up in the canton of the flag, but it was up against a white field. Now, okay, some of you may say, well, what's the difference? You still have the battle flag in there. Okay, whatever. In 1865, months or even maybe weeks before the war ended, the Confederate Congress modified the Confederate flag, and it looks like this. This is the Confederate flag. If you want to say the Confederate flag, then you need to be talking about this flag. All right? That's the Confederate flag. And they made a modification, put this red stripe here, and the red stripe denotes the blood sacrifice that all the men who fought for the Confederacy and their sacrifice. So that's basically it. That's the basic history. Now, you did have various variations of this battle flag. There were several battle flags used throughout the Civil War by Southern units, because remember, the Confederacy did not have one centralized army like the Union Army. The Confederacy was literally a confederacy, so each state had their own battle flag of sorts, and some of them incorporated this design in various ways, shapes, and forms. So there were several battle flags that were used. This is just the most common of all the battle flags that were used. Now, I'd like to talk to black people right now, specifically to blacks. I understand that many in your community see this flag as a sign of racism, oppression, and whatnot. Understandable. I really do understand it. I don't, and in some respects, you have a point. Even though the Southerners were defending their homeland from foreign invaders, they were defending a country that did where slavery was legal. Okay, many of them didn't own slaves, but they were defending a country where slavery was legal. Okay, fair enough. But and then you had the Ku Klux Klan, who hijacked the flag after the Civil War. Let me float an idea to you. I just want to give you something to think about. You can look at this glass as being half full or half empty. And to be quite frankly, I think many of you, not all, certainly not all, but some of the more outspoken ones, outspoken in your community, the more the liberal side, tend to look at it as the glass being half empty. I do not own a Confederate battle flag other than this piece of paper, which is a printout. I've never displayed one, don't intend to own one or display one. But I can tell you one thing. The two causes that have used this flag have lost. You ever thought about that? The Confederate armies that fought against the North lost under that flag. They lost a war. The Union won. And as a result of that war, you had the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Okay? The Ku Klux Klan, yeah, they hijacked the flag. But guess what? Where's the Klan now? The Klan does not have nearly the power and influence that it had back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They are a mere fraction of what they were decades ago. They're irrelevant. They're nothing. When was the last time you ever heard about the Klan burning a cross in somebody's yard? When was the last time you heard about the Klan lynching some brother? It hasn't happened. Okay? Jim Crow is gone. Okay? You can ride at the front of the bus now. You can drink at the same water fountain that I drink at. You can eat at the same restaurant that I eat at. You can go to the same school that white people can go to. You can vote. I mean, Jim Crow, the Ku Klux Klan, used this flag to establish Jim Crow. Jim Crow's dead. So both the Jim Crow KKK and the Confederate armies lost. That ended up being good for your ancestors, the fact that slavery was abolished and outlawed. Okay? So, if some redneck waves the Confederate battle flag over a losing cause, I mean, why would you, for the life of me, I would not want to fly this flag, because it represents defeat. Now that's just me. Now on the other hand, I acknowledge South Carolina's right to fly this flag in front of their state house if the people of South Carolina chose to do so. That's their choice. It's not the choice I would make, but they made the choice. But let me just say this quite frankly. The problems that face the black community today have nothing to do with slavery, which ended 150 years ago. The problems that the black community is experiencing today has nothing to do with the Jim Crow laws, which all ended in 1970. The problems in the black community today are cultural and are a result of the breakdown of the family. Any society that has an out-of-wedlock birth rate of 70% is going to have problems. You're going to have a high dropout rate, a high incarceration rate, a high unemployment rate, a high or low academic achievement rate. In other words, if you want to see all those other social indicators improve, then the black community needs to improve their out-of-wedlock birth rate by lowering it. When you lower the out-of-wedlock birth rate, the other indicators will improve. That's the problem. It's not because of a flag. So, that is my history lesson for today. Thank you for watching. Ciao.